The people with the most money in the room are usually the ones thinking about it the least, and that single fact is going to sound completely backwards to you until you understand the trap hiding inside it. You have been taught that wealth is the reward for obsessing over money, that the ones who track every transaction, calculate every risk, and lie awake running numbers in their head are the ones who eventually win. This is the first mistake almost everyone makes, and it is not a small one. The truth is closer to the opposite. Constant financial vigilance is not the price of wealth. It is usually the symptom of not having enough, and the very habit you believe is protecting you is often the one keeping you exhausted, distracted, and stuck. Here is the mechanism nobody explains to you. When resources are scarce, your mind treats every decision involving money as a threat that must be processed immediately. This is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is a documented pattern in behavioral science, sometimes described as scarcity mindset, where a shortage of any resource, money included, consumes so much mental bandwidth that it becomes harder to think clearly about anything else. Your brain was never designed to calculate a grocery budget and a rent deadline and a medical bill at the same time without cost. Something has to give, and what usually gives is your ability to focus on the very things that could actually increase your income. This is where the paradox becomes visible. Once a person accumulates enough of a buffer, enough savings, enough stability, the mind stops treating money as an emergency and starts treating it as a background system, something to check periodically instead of guard constantly. The cognitive load does not disappear because the person stopped caring. It disappears because the threat that demanded the vigilance in the first place is no longer active. Abundance does not make someone smarter about money. It makes their brain quieter about it, and a quiet brain has far more room left over for decisions that actually build wealth instead of decisions that only manage survival. Now, here is the statement that is going to bother some of you, and you are welcome to argue with it in the comments. Working harder at managing scarcity will never make you wealthy. You cannot budget your way out of a scarcity mindset the same way you cannot think your way out of exhaustion by staying awake longer. At some point, the strategy itself becomes the trap, and the trap wears the disguise of responsibility. So if constant financial anxiety is not discipline and it is not preparation, what is actually happening in your mind every time you check your balance out of dread instead of curiosity? It is a nervous system responding to scarcity as if it were physical danger, because for most of human history, running out of resources meant exactly that. Your brain has not caught up to the fact that a low balance today is rarely a survival threat, the way a lack of food once was for your ancestors. But the alarm system firing inside you does not know the difference, and until you intervene, it will keep treating every financial decision like an emergency. This is where the protocol begins. It is not about earning more immediately. It is about lowering the volume of the alarm so your mind has room to think. Phase 1 is naming the alarm instead of obeying it. The next time you feel that tightening sensation before opening a banking app or a bill, you do not push through it and you do not avoid it either. You say to yourself, quietly and without drama, "This is my scarcity alarm, not an emergency." That single sentence interrupts the automatic spiral before it fully activates, because you cannot rationally examine a threat while your body is convinced it is under attack. Naming the reaction separates you from it, even if only for a few seconds, and those seconds are where control lives. Phase 2 is replacing the emergency question with an information question. Instead of asking yourself, "How bad is this?" which triggers a threat response, ask yourself, "What does this actually tell me?" which triggers a problem-solving response. One question keeps you frozen. The other moves you forward. This will not feel natural at first because your mind has likely rehearsed the panic version thousands of times. Rehearse the calmer version deliberately, the same way you would practice any other skill. Phase 3 is building what behavioral scientists studying scarcity often call a buffer, even a small one, specifically so your mind has evidence that the emergency is not permanent. This does not mean you need enormous savings before you are allowed to feel calm. It means every time you set aside even a small amount, you send your nervous system proof that scarcity is not the only possible state. Over time, this proof accumulates faster than the money itself, and it is often the mental shift, not the number in the account, that finally lets someone make decisions from clarity instead of dread. This is usually the point where people either keep managing their money the same anxious way for another decade, or they start building something different. If you want to keep sharpening the second option instead of drifting back into the first, this is exactly the kind of protocol worth keeping close, which is really just another way of saying it is worth staying close to this channel, because the mind that protects itself from financial panic is the same mind that eventually stops needing to. There is a quieter cost to constant money anxiety that almost nobody talks about, and it is the most expensive part of the pattern. Every hour spent ruminating over a purchase you already made, or replaying a bill you cannot change tonight, is an hour not spent noticing an opportunity, negotiating a better rate, or building a skill that could shift your income entirely. Scarcity does not just cost you money. It costs you the attention required to escape scarcity in the first place, and that is the real trap hiding underneath the obvious one. Wealthy behavior, the kind that compounds over years, rarely looks dramatic in the moment. It looks like someone who checks their finances on a schedule instead of out of panic, who makes a decision and does not revisit it 50 times afterward, who treats a financial setback as information rather than proof of failure. None of this requires already having money. It requires interrupting the alarm long enough to think like someone who does. And that shift in thinking is available to you starting with the very next financial decision you make today. You are not required to feel calm about money overnight, and anyone promising instant transformation is selling you something. What you can do, starting now, is refuse to let a scarcity alarm run your decisions unexamined. Name it when it fires. Ask what it is actually telling you instead of how bad it feels. Build the smallest possible proof that things can be different, and let that proof grow quietly in the background while you keep your attention where it belongs. Keep this protocol close. Keep your attention where it earns you something instead of where fear demands it. And never let a number on a screen decide how much power you have over your own mind.